Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Welcome to the Ballology app Ultimate Demo. Trusted by leaders in the game. Ballology is a player development platform built for coaches and players alike. You can expect live shot tracking, workout libraries, and AI insights. You can easily chart team shooting drills in practice or in training sessions. Track all of those shots using an iPhone or an Android device in real time. You can view your team's performance through a video archive or by using our shot charts. After every shooting workout, take a look at your breakdown by viewing your percentages and your shot locations. Let's take a deeper look to learn how to make the most out of the Ballology app. Let's see how you measure up in the Ballology Skills Assessment, where you can test your shooting skills versus other shooters worldwide. Navigate to Ballology AI, where you can ask any question to get answers in real time for smarter training.
Make that footwork a little more sharp.
Coaches or players can create custom workouts in just minutes. Hit your on-court skills or basketball IQ or even strength and conditioning. It can be done on the Ballology app. Compete with everything you do on the Ballology app through our workout leaderboards. Elevate your game with the Ballology app. Download it for free today.
So thankful to get to have this opportunity to talk with you. You're somebody that I've enjoyed talking basketball with. I feel like since I was in college, you would come to Baylor practices and you always had this phrase. You'd say, Matt, listen, I'm what you call a basketball junkie. And then you go into these new things that you've been talking about and learning. And I always really appreciated that because I thought even as a college kid, I think I'm that way too. And so this is just an honor for me, Coach. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Can I go on and talk about whenever you were at Baylor?
Go ahead. Yeah, we're just going to talk. It's going to be awesome.
Okay, we'll talk and you can edit it out. That's good. But anyway, I had some things I was going to say. Actually, do you remember Doug McNamee? He was
Yes,
a
I do.
manager at
Yep.
Baylor.
Yep. I do remember
He
Doug.
was the first person, well, as I watched the games, and basketball is my only hobby other than the Bible, as I watched the games, I knew that we were doing well when you were on the floor, as well. I mean, you might not have been making a lot of points, but the team did well. So Doug in high school had developed a plus minus chart. Do you still use one now?
Well, I learned it from Coach Bliss about the
Okay.
pluses for the good things that you do and the minuses for the things you don't. And it's about basically productivity.
Okay, well, what happened was Doug kept this whenever 5 players were on the floor, the plus and minus. And so we noticed that Baylor might have been ahead by 6 points when you went out on the floor, but when you came off the floor, we were up 14. So that was a plus. And I
Now,
never heard
Coach,
of
were
a
you
plus
going to
minus.
tell were you telling Coach Bliss this? Because I don't feel like you were helping me to stay on the floor more, which if he would have known this, maybe I would have.
I don't know. I would just talk to Coach Bliss, and he'd have to put up with me and
Yeah.
so on. But anyway, you got to play plenty, and he was real happy with you and so on. But anyway, here's a couple other things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to say this about James Naismith. You familiar with James Naismith, I guess?
Yes, sir.
You're a
Yes, sir.
smart guy. James Naismith invented basketball, I think 1891, but he invented it for 2 purposes. I think basketball is our most important sport because I think the Lord does. And I'll explain that to you. I know football's bigger, but basketball's important for this reason. Naismith invented basketball to have something for people to exercise in the cold months in Massachusetts in the winter in the East Coast. Well, he also invented it for another purpose, to spread the gospel of Christ around the world, hopefully. And you know what? He succeeded at it. which is amazing. So I thought that was great because it's spread around
Yeah.
now.
People like Athletes in Action and other coaches
Uh,
that have used basketball to open doors and to
mhm.
share the gospel. It is incredible that that's what one of his motivations were. And yeah, you're right. It has happened.
And I don't know if you're aware of it or not. After he invented basketball, he was, of course, a basketball coach. And he did eventually coach at the University of Kansas. And people don't realize that he's the only coach in KU history to have a losing record.
That is not something I knew. That's interesting.
To have not won there and so on. But anyway, he's was quite a guy and he made a huge difference here. Okay, let me get into a little bit of
That should make
basketball.
all of us feel good when we do have a losing season, just to remember that Naismith had one. That should make us feel a little better.
And I want to tell you another reason why University of Kansas is blessed in basketball. I believe God blesses some people, and as we well know. But the Kansas later on had a coach named Fog Allen. It's Allen Fieldhouse
Yeah.
named after him. People don't realize it, but in the 1930s, the wasn't the NCAA then. They had a different name for it. But he was on a committee, and the committee all got together and they decided they would change basketball to only allow the players to have two dribbles, no more than
Oh,
two dribbles in the game. And Fog Allen, which was a medical doctor, when there was a player injured on Kansas's team, he didn't take them to the doctor. He took care of them. Seriously. But anyway, whenever he fought them tooth and nail and allowed us to have more than two dribbles. But could you imagine how that would have messed up the game if we'd just been allowed two dribbles? So
drive motion
I
would
thought,
have
and
struggled. Probably never been invented. The way we play, it would be tough. Yeah, I get that. There's probably some coaches that would love that, though. Don't you think?
yeah, I was thinking that too. Some coaches would be happy if we just have two dribbles. It's fun. But anyway, I met Fog Allen when I was a little boy. I was in about the fourth grade and I went to a wedding in Lawrence, Kansas, and my dad introduced me to him. And heck, I didn't know who Fog Allen was, because I was just a kid, but I thought I did actually shake his hand and so on. Here, let me roll on a few things here about basketball. You ready?
Love it. Love it. Yes.
I think coaches need mentors. I'm going to tell you why Bob Knight was so successful. He actually became the head coach at Army when he was like 24. But his three mentors as a young coach was one named Claire B. Claire B is in the Hall of Fame. He's from New York. He was a great coach. Claire B, Hank Iba, which basically invented man-to-man defense at Oklahoma State, and the coach at California, Pete Newell, is also in the Hall of Fame. And some people say maybe the greatest coach ever. And so when he starts out coaching, he has three of the greatest mentors ever. And I think this is what coaches need to do now. They need to get out and get some older coaches to talk to. You can learn a lot from our pain,
Key
because we
point.
made so many mistakes. There wasn't any internet or anything. You just had to kind of learn on your own. And that's it's such an advantage to have the internet and everything that we have and so on. But anyway, I thought that helped him. Now, I wanted to say this too. As far as me on basketball, in 1961, Matt, when are you born? Huh?
1982.
1982, my goodness. But anyway, in 1961, the NCAA championship game used to be the only game on TV. You didn't have any March Madness. They just played the championship game on a Saturday. And so in 1961, I watched the game on TV. We had just black and white TVs then. I watched the whole thing, and Ohio State was undefeated, but they lost to Cincinnati for the national championship. And I became hooked on basketball watching it that. I was in the 8th grade. And so I've been into it actually ever since. Now, in the game, I later on looked at a magazine, the pictures in color that were taken during that game. This will amaze you. All the men, all the male fans and their wives that were at the game, it was played in Kansas City, about 10 or 12,000 people at Municipal Auditorium. They all had on sport coats and ties. The fans did.
It's
They
changed a
dressed
little,
up.
huh?
I know it. Now you got guys with no shirts on. I know it. So it's really, the world has totally changed. Then later on I'm from Missouri, Windsor, Missouri, a small town outside of Kansas City, about 90. In 1963, Missouri is a little different as a state. It played the state championships in different cities. It didn't just play it in Columbia, where the University of Missouri is. Sometimes they played in St. Louis, sometimes Kansas City, sometimes Springfield. They rotated it around, and I think maybe still do. But in 1963, I went to the Missouri Large School State Tournament, state championship game, played in Kansas City. I was amazed. I remember Jefferson City played St. Louis Christian Brothers for the state championship. But in the semifinal game, Kansas City Central played Springfield Central for third place. They had a third place game. And there was a player that played for Kansas City Central named Warren Armstrong, which later changed his name to Warren Jabali. And he's about 6'2". He was Michael Jordan and Dr. J before they were players.
Yeah.
In fact, I did not see this game, but it is written in the Kansas City paper, and you can go read about it. When he was a junior in high school, he stole a ball and dunked it and hit his forehead on the front of the rim. It is written in the paper. It didn't knock him to his feet. He just grazed it with his head. Now, can you imagine that?
Which I didn't have that problem. I,
No, neither did I. But anyway, that was exciting to watch that. And then I eventually went to the state tournament, and I have watched the national championship basketball tournament, NCAA tournament, since 1961. I've missed two or three, but I think the most important thing, almost in American history, happened in 1966. Kentucky played University of Texas, El Paso, UTEP, for the national
all right.
championship on Saturday afternoon in Maryland. And in that game is the first time we've had 5 white starters against 5 black starters. And it was an amazing game. That game literally changed the integration of America, in my opinion. And so I enjoyed that. And Don Haskins, was the coach of UTEP, great coach. And it was an amazing game. Pat Riley played for Kentucky. But anyway, that game changed America. But quite surprisingly, University of Texas El Paso didn't have the best team in America, and Kentucky wasn't the best team. UCLA had the best team, but freshmen couldn't play. Lou Alcindor, which was Kareem Jabbar, was a freshman, so he only played on the freshman team, and had a player from Kansas City, Kansas, Lucius Allen, which played pro basketball eventually. They were just on the freshman team. They couldn't play, but nobody could have beaten them. Jabbar, or Alcindor's the only player that they've ever had to change a rule about, and that was that, they took away dunking for 2 or 3 years because he just literally could dominate so much in college basketball and so on. But anyway, that's a little bit of trivia that we can mess
That's
with there.
interesting.
But anyway,
Coach, I have a question. Can I ask a question?
oh, you can ask me. I mean, I don't know when to shut up.
No, you're good. The you're talking about coaches needing mentors, and I really agree, and I like that idea. Why do you think some coaches are reluctant to do that, or maybe just don't even know that it's important?
I think a lot of coaches are very insecure. And I've sent out a basketball newsletter for 25 years. I retired at the end of 99 and started sending a newsletter out in 2000. It was about the time you were at Baylor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so For 25 years, I've sent out a newsletter. I used to send it out every day, and then I switched every week, and now I'm cut back a little bit. You can only say so much, but I'm still learning tons of basketball. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I've learned much more since I've retired than when I coached. I think coaches are insecure. And I had a good coach tell me, actually, Jeff Bell, I think he coaches at Grayford, Texas. Great
Yeah,
coach.
just won a state championship there, 1,000+ wins.
Right, right. And he's left-handed. And I want to talk about left-handers in a minute. But
Okay.
anyway, Jeff told me, he said when he was 25, he felt like he knew it all. When he's 35, he felt like he was kind of starting to learn, He says the older you get, the more receptive you get, and just the better you get. But a lot of coaches are just reluctant to listen to older coaches, and I think they need to, I think it'd be great to open up and talk to them, but I think they're reluctant and being a little bit insecure, probably.
I think you nailed it right there because I think if I'm being honest with myself, especially starting out, I think deep down I knew that I didn't know it all, but I wanted to act like I did. And I
Hmm.
do think if we can be humble enough to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers and we don't know everything, then maybe we'll be more willing to go out and find like Coach Tommy Thomas is still a mentor of mine to this day,
Hmm.
but I should reach out more and I should ask more questions and it's but I agree with you. I think early on especially it's this idea of if I need help, that means I'm not very good at this. But I disagree. I think
Hmm.
acknowledging that we can learn things and need help and that self-awareness that TJ Rosine talked about as a superpower. I think we all need to gain that. But it's kind of
Right.
if a younger coach hears this and makes the decision, awesome, man, they are wise. Unfortunately, we usually figure out, man, I wish I should have done that when we're older, right?
Right. Well, if these younger coaches, we're not trying to get the credit for anything, older coaches. We really just want to talk basketball. I know Kelvin
Yeah.
Sampson when he coached at Oklahoma. Do you remember Abe Lemons? He used to coach at Texas years ago. Okay, well, Abe Lemons was the head coach of the University of Texas. He was very witty and everything. But anyway, Kelvin was at Oklahoma coaching, and Abe Lemons lived in Oklahoma City. So Coach Sampson would actually send somebody out to his house to get him. He was sick and dying, and he would bring him to practice and let him scout, give him a notebook and let him scout practice, just because he knew that Abe loved basketball. you know. And so I thought that that was good. I think these older coaches, I think we ought to call our coach, our high school coach. I still keep in contact with him, Tom Goddard. He's 82 years old, and I call him every once in a while. And he calls me as sharp as a tack, and so on. But I think we need to kind of take them under, or keep up with them. They love it. Just get somebody in town that's retired from basketball and just get them to come out and watch your practice or watch a game. You don't have to do what they tell you. Just kind of listen a little bit. You might pick up one thing.
Somebody that has a lot of experience and also isn't too close to it might be able
Uh,
to give you a lot of good advice because I think sometimes when you're in the gym with your team for so long, you just get your
mhm.
perspective changes and you might not be seeing things clearly. And so an outsider's view that has
Right.
experience, that's really valuable.
It's just like your wife. She'll tell you different things, you know, and you'll think, I don't really agree with that. You don't say that to her, but she's probably right, you know. And so I think an outsider is helpful and can help you make your job easier on coaching and more fun and so on. But anyway, let me say something about assistant coaches. I got so much stuff here that I got to roll, so I don't want to,
Coach, keep going, keep going, keep going.
because I'm doing this for coaches, and hopefully they can pick up some assistant coaches. This is where a lot of high school coaches, I think, mess up. They don't give their assistant coaches jobs on the sidelines. Coaches want to work. I was an assistant football coach for 28 years. I don't know if
Hear
I
that.
needed money that bad or I'm mentally ill. But anyway, so this head football coaches gave me all kinds of jobs. I mean, I had to turn the lights on before every home game. I had to turn them off. I had to pick up all the yard markers. My wife and we'd go around and pick all those up. I mean, just all kinds of stuff in practice. But I didn't mind having jobs, and I think most of them liked it. But I think assistant coaches need to have these jobs in games. One of them needs to keep a deflection chart. You know, you need 30 deflections in a game, and they need to tell them at the end of each quarter. You know why you keep a deflection chart? Deflections show you how much you're hustling, I think. So you need a deflection chart. You need somebody to keep a turnover chart, somebody to keep paint touches. Who gets a 50-50 balls? And you can go on and on. There's a million stats, but it's whatever each coach likes. But I think they need to be given jobs. And later on, I'll talk. You need to have a coach that's a blockout coach. In practice and games, he's kind of mean. Now, you don't have time to run every time somebody doesn't block out, but you need to get them to do 5 push-ups.
Yeah.
But you need every coach, even in college, needs a blockout coach. And just, because blocking out is hard to do and it doesn't come natural. Okay, let me go on stats that are important to keep. You go ahead.
Let me jump in right there because I love that idea of giving assistant coaches jobs, and I've definitely been guilty of, especially at Grapevine Faith, where we've had more part-time coaches. They have full-time jobs. They come to me after. So maybe this idea of like I don't want to not bother them too much, but overload or overwhelm them. But that's kind of a bad excuse. And so I did take your advice on this, and and with the guys that would show up, a little bit more of a. So I love the things that you talked about charting. That I think a good activity for coaches is to, okay, let's just take offensively, what are the things that you want to accomplish? And so for me, we want to get a lot of paint touches. We want to shoot what we would call sevens, which are open shots, within our
Okay,
range. So a lot
okay,
of times
good.
it's threes, but anything. And then we want to get a certain number of rebounds. So that's one thing that like your offensive coordinator can be there charting. Well, then like the game it's a game of opposites, right? So if that's what we want, well, we want to stop them from doing that. And
Right,
so your defensive
right.
coordinator can chart their offensive rebounds, their paint touches, and their open shots. Because what I want to know at every quarter is, do we have more offensive rebounds than they do? Do we have more paint touches than they do? And do we have more open shots than they do? And a lot of times, if we're winning in those categories, we're in a really good spot in the game. Or at halftime, if I know what those numbers look like, that can really give me a lot of direction in what we need to talk about at halftime instead of
Right.
just guessing at things. But that's a great reminder, Coach, and I love the ones that you talked about. But those are just 3 things that I like to focus on in games.
Well, if all of us can just learn a few little things about basketball, like when you go to clinics, you're not going to learn everything, but you can learn 2, 3, 4 little things that really help. And that's what my newsletter was all about, is trying to help coaches. A lot of these things I'm going to tell you tonight come from my newsletter, but it's just going to be podcasted and so on. But anyway, let me go on here. Stats that are important. I really only want to win one stat. Don't laugh. I want to win the best field goal percentage. I'm a prayer. If we could ramble a little bit here, I wanted Houston to win the national championship. Now they had some
Yeah.
things going for them that only Billy Clyde calls my thinking Silverisms, my ideas. Billy Clyde Gillespie, but anyway, here's one of mine. Teams that start a left-hander generally win national championships. Okay? Well, Houston started a left-hander.
How do you back that up? Where's that coming from?
Watching since 1961. UCLA, when they had Kareem Jabbar or Lou Alcindor, they had
Yeah.
Lynn Shackelford that was left-handed. that there wasn't a three-point line, but he would make all kinds of deep shots, enough to draw them out. But anyway, you just think about it. Now, now, I know that Florida won the national championship. They shot the best field goal percentage of the two teams. Surprisingly, they shot 34% and Houston shot 32. Okay, now my left-hander theory. Florida didn't have any left-handers, but their coach was left-handed. Now, that's very weird, but anyway, that's not part of my theory, but I thought I would throw that out to you. And this is the first
Think,
national
how
championship
do you,
game.
sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
How do you win? Can you win a game if you shoot a lower field goal percentage? What has to happen for you to, because that makes a lot of sense to me. What has to happen for you to win, but like be a Houston in that situation?
Well, with Houston, you don't want to turn it over 3 times in the last minute and a half. But
Yeah.
anyway,
That's true. Yeah.
Coach, I don't know exactly what to tell you on how do you win if you shoot a lower field goal percentage. But it does
I agree with
happen.
you, though. I feel like the turnover battle, you have to win that, because if you're shooting
Mhm,
a less of a percentage and you're also getting less shots,
mhm.
right? Like if you in theory, I think if you were to get more shots than your opponent, you could still shoot a lower percentage but still win, right?
Right. But generally, the team that shoots the ball the most loses. I know it doesn't
Hmm.
seem to make sense, but it does. Actually, the team that's ahead at halftime wins 74% of the time.
Wow.
And actually, I'm a big Doug Collins fan. Remember when he used to uh, coach pro basketball? He said that the team that starts the fastest usually wins. And he also said, and maybe this will be true for Houston, you got to get your heart broken before you can win a championship. Now, you think about this happens quite a bit. The team will get beat and then they'll turn around in a year or two later and win a championship. You learn from that pain, I guess.
I think Jordan did
And
for
so on.
sure, with Collins and before Phil Jackson. Yeah.
Right. All of them lose sometime, of course, in pro basketball, even in college. You learn a lot more when you lose. It doesn't bother me to lose as long as you get to play another game. If you don't want to lose the last one. But if you play
Right.
another one, you learn a lot. You learn a lot more from losing than you do winning. You think about it, you do. So stats are important. Okay, now I've got 10 ways that you win the game.
I love it.
Now, these are things that I've noticed. Things Most of the things that I'm telling you, 99% of them are things that I've learned from other people. The only natural thing, this will sound like I'm bragging, but I'm not. The only thing that I ever thought of in basketball that I don't know of anybody else that has, and that is kicking the ball. Now, don't laugh. After a kick, Baylor actually keeps a stat on this. Jerome Tang, do you know Jerome, I guess?
Yeah.
He's at K-State now. But anyway, he laughed at me, but then he started keeping a stat on it. If you can kick the ball when the other team throws a pass, seldom after they inbound the ball do they ever score. Don't ask me why. It's just a fluky thing. But just watch. It happens.
So you're saying they're on defense, they kick it, team takes it out of bounds, they
Mhm.
typically don't score on that possession?
Yes,
Huh.
they typically do not score. It's just a weird thing. But anyway, I was going to say, let's not tell anybody I said that, but we will have a lot of people probably listening to this and so on. Okay, here's the
That's
10
not true.
ways to
Yeah.
here's 10 ways to win the game. Now, I think every coach should memorize them. I think you should write these down, put them on a note card, put them in your pocket, have them. If the other team scores 3 baskets in a row and you don't score, call timeout. You got to stop the bleeding. I don't care if you run out of timeouts, you stop them. Number 2, very seldom do coaches do these things because they get so nervous in a game and so excited with people yelling and screaming. The last 30 seconds of each quarter, ahead or behind, and you get the ball, if there's around 30 seconds, 40 seconds, take the last shot of the quarter. Because teams run down there and shoot it real quick with 12 seconds. The other team gets the ball and goes down and shoots a layup at the end of the quarter, and then the momentum's to them. But take the 30 to 40 seconds, take the last shot. Just hold up one finger. Then take it with 5 seconds to go. One shot. Rest your best player 30 seconds each half. Have you ever heard of Ralph Tasker? Ralph Tasker is a Hall of Fame coach from New Mexico. He won state 12 times in Hobbs, New Mexico. Plays very fast, pressed the whole game, very
Ross
up-tempo.
played.
Yes. And they had players there better than Ronald Ross, and he's plenty good. Bill
Yeah, that's
Bridges
good.
that played in the NBA. One year, Hobbs had so many good players, he had 8 players get college scholarships. 8. But anyway, he says, take your best player out and let him rest for 30 seconds. He said, a high school kid can fully recover in 30 seconds. Put him back in. They're out there dying. I've actually seen kids foul on purpose just to get to rest. But anyway, so 30 seconds rest and then put him back. Now, here's where you run into a two-edged sword. You don't want to put him back, the kid that just played 30 seconds, you don't want to take him right back out. So you got to think a little bit about how to do that. Okay. Now, score the first basket of each quarter. Now, sometimes it's going to be their ball, so you have to have a stop. Now, I kept a stat on this when I coached. One year, when we scored 3 out of 4 times in a quarter, to start a quarter, we won every game. It's that big a deal.
Yeah.
Scored the first basket of each quarter. And you can, talk to them about making stops too. So that's important. Number 5, don't subs, when you put them in the game, tell them, you don't have to do this all the time. Tell them the first time you touch the ball, don't shoot it. You know why? They're not warmed up. They'll miss it every time. The first time they can touch it they can shoot it the second time. And actually, if players, if some guys are listening to this that aren't starters, if when they go in the game, if they wouldn't try to score or they wouldn't turn it over, they can play a long time.
Yeah, that first shot or turnover when they first get in, it really hurts the confidence of the coach and that person for sure.
I know it. It does. You're right. I hadn't thought about it, but you're right. Okay. Now, be the last team out of every timeout. Sometimes you can make them come over there and get you. Now, you're going to think this is another weird thing. The team that stays in there the longest, that's the better coach. Did you ever watch Rick Majerus coach? He kept those guys in the
I went
huddle
to his
forever.
basketball camp. I went to his basketball camp in high
did you?
school. Yeah, because Coach T and Coach Thomas and him were really good friends. Actually, kind of looked a lot alike. Us as people thought they were
They
brothers.
did. Uh-huh.
But I never got to. I didn't get to watch him much back then.
But he studied basketball. He'd been an assistant under Al McGuire. But anyway, he always kept them in there a long time, and I think you got to keep them in there. And I think at every timeout, you should never be positive. Now, kids love negativity. I mean, just get over there. I don't care if you've run off 20 in a row and the other team calls timeout, you find something they did wrong. Because they just do better when you're fussing at them. My wife fusses at me, heck, I do better. And so it doesn't hurt to get fussed at. Your mother fussed at you and you're crazy about her. I think coaches have got to be like mean mamas. They just can't be nice. Okay, last team. Okay, now this is important. I learned this from Fran Francilla, great coach. If Grapevine Faith misses 2 outside shots in a row, could be a deep 2 or a 3. Next time we're going inside or driving, no exceptions. I don't care if you're wide open for a 3, don't shoot it. Okay, next, start all quarters driving. Get a bucket, get the momentum. I'll trade you layups for 3-point shots any day. You got to have them both, I know. I know you're a big 3-point guy. Okay.
This list is great because I mean, there's obviously some of them that, man, I'm right on board with and in line with, and then there's others that challenge me a little bit. But the beauty of basketball, and this, is that there's so many ways to win, so many ways to do it, and so just because I may shoot more than 2 threes in a row and keep pulling.
That's okay.
That doesn't mean everybody has to do that.
Right. Actually, I learned this from Calipari. After you make 1 or 2 threes, I heard him tell his team this. He says the next times you need to become a driver. Why Steph Curry is such a good three-point shooter is because he's a great driver.
Yeah.
He'll hurt you one way or the other. And so, but I think you got to be able to drive some after you make a 3 or 2.
I like that.
And so on to that. And here part of this is going to be 4 calls that you make on offense. I've written 30 playbooks.
Number 9? Is this number 9?
This is number, I got it number 10. I don't know what I've got here.
Okay.
But anyway,
Okay.
let's just add this to these things, okay? So I guess it would be 14 things. Sorry. But anyway, whenever you don't really have to have plays. I mean, I know a million plays. I love them. But I think with the pressure defense and everything, you got to be able to just play. But I think you can just have an alignment or have motion offense, but you need these 4 calls, even if you have different plays. You need these 4, and they're simple. Number 1, you need to swing your arm over your head. That means the ball's got to be reversed before anybody can shoot. Actually, that's Dean Smith's first rule of offense, I guess after spacing, is to reverse the ball before anybody shoots. Number 2 is paint touches. Just yell paint. I know you're trying to get paint touches anyway, but it just emphasizes it. And you can do a paint call where you just shoot it in the paint.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
number
think
3.
that one's huge. Hold on, Coach, on number 2. I think that's really important, though, because you're right. Like, we do want to get a lot of paint touches, but the possessions that we don't, and we're just trimming the edges of the arc, we're typically going to shoot a contested shot from that possession.
Right.
So the paint touch, it's not just to score from there, but it's also to create open shots around that you won't get if you're not touching it.
Right.
So I like that.
They claim if you can make 2 paint touches in a possession, that you'll score almost every time. 2 paint touches. And so on. But anyway, I
can
think
see
that's good
that.
to know. The third call is fist. You hold your fist up over your head. I used to watch Pat Riley when he coached the Knicks, and he'd hold up his fist, and I'd get up close to the TV and I'd write, what is this play? He's running fist. He's run it 15 times this game. Well, I got to thinking about it later. His fist just meant he was going to throw it inside to Ewing. So that means get it inside. Get it to your best postman if you can. And that was what his fist call is. They won't know what you're doing. And number 4 is there's an old saying by the Boston Celtics, and I think you should say this before the game to your team. 3 passes, we get a good shot. 5 passes, we get a great shot. You got me?
Yep.
That's when Red Auerbach coached them. Good night. That's before all these guys are listened to or even thought of. Okay. But anyway, 3 passes, you get a good shot. 5 passes, you get a great shot. So I would hold up 5 fingers, meaning we got to pass the ball 5 times, preferably kind of fast. Because in high school, the defender will make a mistake. If you pass it 5 times, now here's an exception to the rule. You ready? If you have a layup, forget the rule, shoot the layup. But you got to tell them that, because some of them will try to do it. They'll pass it up.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.